Have you ever been reminded of a game that you had as a kid that you look back on after decades of it being removed from your memory and wonder, was that even real? It's a thought I have often, considering my first ever video game console was the PlayStation 2, which was ripe for shovelware. Like those awful Phoenix Disney ripoffs, or crappy licensed games like... well, there's just too much to choose from. Garfield 2, I guess. But I've got one right here that I know you've never heard of. Unless you grew up in Europe, that is. I don't know what your childhood was like. To join the rankings of such beloved classics like Eminem's Racing, and Eminem's Beach Party, and Eminem's Adventure. Okay, wow, a lot of Eminem ones. We've got Smarties Meltdown for the PlayStation 2.
Guys, I think I just found, like, the best game of all time. Like, look at it. What?
I was always confused by video games based on food franchises and mascots. Like, who really walks into a store and is like, what should I spend my hard-earned money on today? Ooh, Pepsi Man. Well, me apparently. Look, I was a dumb kid who didn't have the internet until the age of 7, so what game was I gonna get? Whichever had the most colourful looking box art. They've always existed from the infancy of gaming, and quickly garnered the reputation of being shoddily thrown together trash only made to try bring more brand awareness to their products. And hope that you staring at a poorly pixelated Ronald McDonald would make you want to go get a burger. But at least with something such as McDonald's or Burger King, you've got a recognisable mascot to work with, you know, something that a kid can latch on to and remember. But Smarties? My American viewers are probably asking themselves, wait, aren't Smarties those weird chalk candies made for old people and kids who can't afford normal candy? Well no, don't be dumb, our Smarties came out first, that means we're better than you. Basically they're just M&Ms but slightly bigger. And better, fight me. Although while M&Ms have iconic and popular mascots that can be used in advertising and other kinds of media, what does Smarties have? A cool logo, I guess. So for some reason someone at Nestle thought making a game based around their expressionless circular characters would be a good idea? It wasn't. But now we've got Smarties Meltdown, released only in Europe on the 17th of March 2006, with little to no fanfare. It was critically panned by the few people bothered to play it, and I'm just gonna go out on a hunch and assume it wasn't very profitable. This may come as a surprise to you, but this was actually the first game I ever owned. This was my introduction to video games. That may explain my controversial takes. Sonic Heroes is still the best game ever made, but when I first got my PS2 back in 2006, I came home with this game, Lego Star Wars, and The Simpsons Hit and Run. Two very good games. So of course I put in Smarties first. I think even as a kid I thought, there's something off about this game that I can't quite put my finger on. I played it a bunch but could never get past the first level. I would sit down and go, alright, today's the time I'm finally gonna beat Smarties Meltdown.
A few moments later.
I am excelente.
So I thought it might be fun to revisit this somewhat pleasant childhood memory to see if my tastes have at least somewhat refined with age. Oh yeah, here we go, I love that sound. Did you know the more games you have in your memory card, the more blocks appear in that open... What? Oh yeah, that's what was off about it. It was awful. If you skip past the awful graphic design as my passion menu screen, you'll find out that in this game the evil Dr. Sarsweets wants to take over the Smarties factory because they're just too dang popular, and so he sends out his troopers to destroy the Smarties. Thankfully we've got our brave hero to save the day, a blue Smartie. Not even the blue Smartie, like there are plenty others in the game, he's just a random blue Smartie. With the help of his exosuit, looks like Rick and Morty took a few cues from this game, am I right? Big Blue has to traverse through each section of the Smarties factory to fix what has gone wrong and send the Doctor back to whence he came. Other than the implication that Smarties are constantly orbiting the Earth, which is a very scary thought, this is a standard enough story for something like this. What isn't standard though is the opening FMV. This terrified me as a kid. Big things always weirded me out, so having these giant droopy Patrick Star looking things towering over our favourite Smartie protagonist made me skip this cutscene every time I booted up the game. So if you're wondering what kind of game they decided to tackle, what would you suggest? Something simple and easier to program, right? A puzzle game? Maybe a simple kart racer? Yeah, how about an open world 3D platformer? Yeah, that should be too hard. It consists of 5 levels, each representing a different part of the Smarties factory like mixing or packaging, where you find yourself having to run, jump and punch your way to the goal. At surface level it comes off like a strange amalgamation of different early 90s platformers. For example, it's got the expansive levels of Mario 64 with the almost tank-like controls of Croc. There are even rolling power-ups that feel kinda similar to the spin dash mechanics of Sonic Adventure. Only difference is this game came out in 2006, and by that point these examples were already being seen as dated. And to be honest, comparing those games to this might be an insult to them. At least those games were able to immediately entice the audience and make them want to explore more of their world to see what adventures lie ahead. Compare the first moments of their opening levels to Smarties. Truly riveting, I know. What doesn't help is the oddly creepy elevator music playing in the background, paired with the weird Smarties constantly begging you to collect them with the voices of children. Speaking of voices, they really wanted you to know who voiced Blue in this game, with the back of the box advertising the fact that Dave Benson Phillips was in this game. If you're wondering who this person is, then I'm right there with you. I had no clue who this was as a kid. Apparently he was the presenter on a few C-Babies shows in the UK, which is a network for babies, so my time is clearly being well spent on this game. All I know is his voice does not fit a Smartie at all. He's constantly got one of those really bombastic tones that only ever really suits people when they're talking to babies.
Gotta keep going. I can't give up now. My exosuit is
The control in this game is atrocious. I compared it to Croc earlier, but at least in that game the tank controls were intentional, and you could tell they built the levels around having it. But imagine having a character who controlled like Croc, running around Mario 64 styled platforming levels. I don't need to imagine it. I lived it. It's just good that this is a game meant for small children, because it means they almost never try to challenge you. Most of the time you're just walking around flat terrain punching the same bad guys with the same stock punching sound effect over and over again. At least they try to make it interesting by occasionally sprinkling in power-ups you can use, like a laser gun. Sure. This really doesn't help though. Each level is the exact same in structure. You're either doing one of two things: collecting Smarties or pushing buttons. Sometimes they throw a curveball at you and make you do both at the same time. Now that's thinking outside the box. But basically that's all you do. Most levels are like 20 to 30 minutes long, but in terms of scale they're rather small. They just try to artificially extend the length by locking most doors behind an absurd amount of Smarties. But the last level just gets stupidly difficult by the end. It makes you go through all this platforming over bottomless pits. Okay, well they're not bottomless, but the floor is lava apparently. So you get through all this, hoping not to die on the way, only to finally reach the end where the door goes,
"Not enough Smarties."
So now you have to go all the way back, collect more Smarties, then turn around and go back to the exit while still hoping not to die on the way. You die on the way, and get a game over because for some reason you can't collect more than 5 lives, then you have to replay the same 30-minute level from the beginning. Fun! What really doesn't help this repetitiveness is that every level takes place within a factory, so each location looks the exact same. There's almost no variety here. Just look at the first level compared to the last level. Oh wait, sorry, I got these mixed up. This is the first level and this is the last level. Don't know how I did that, they're just so visually unique. So this is what the next generation is capable of. After you fight the final boss, which... yeah, sure was a challenge, we get to see the thrilling conclusion.
It's game over for you, Doctor!
You have beaten me. The children of the world will be eating Smarties again.
Well then, not even any credits? I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to be associated with this either. I can only imagine M&M's did a much better job at this whole video game integration thing. Welp, I sense another video on the horizon. So yeah, that was Smarties Meltdown. I think it's safe to say that this is the first and worst video game I ever played. They are not shy at all about their laziness with this one, from awful controls to repetitive gameplay and presentation you'd expect from an early N64 game, not something that came out in 2006. So now you may be asking yourself why I even bothered making a video on something so obscure and random, obviously made for children. So I don't know, what else are you gonna do on a Friday?